and I'm guessing Vush fans weren't happy with this criticism. Yeah, I completely missed this. Although I guess I caught sort of okay. I guess I'm back now. I restarted the stream because my fucking camera was acting weird. Yeah. I'm just gonna make sure that I don't have to refresh chat. Tell me, well, if you see this, let me know. Looks like it's gone through. Yeah, people Vosh surrounds himself with. Thank you. Okay, did you see my test message in chat? I just want to make sure I don't need to refresh anything. The camera freezes again like that. I think I'm just going to ignore it. Otherwise, this could just take forever to get started. Yeah, why not? Let's have an embassy. Oh, we're getting better at civil engineering. Oh no, we're not removing the crabs. I like crabs. I'm a builder though. Could use a builder. They're useful, they build things. Are you hearing the game? I'm trying something new with the audio, and if I can avoid having to use headphones. Well, I'll have to check that out then. If I can avoid having to use headphones, I'd like to. So I find them annoying and they fuck up my hair. So if you can hear this, and well, then I can just do it, because I had been concerned that there might be an echo if it's picking up the audio output both from the audio output capture and my microphone. And that would be kind of horrible to listen to, so that's why I've been using headphones. But yeah, I hate that term too. I mean, it trivializes everything. And most of the stuff it's used to describe really should not be trivialized because it's not fucking trivial. We've got various options for the rotisserie period of the evening. I mean, you can continue looking at the extent to which Weedlord manages to not be too much more ignorant of Marx than Caleb Maupin. Or there's some Vush shit, there's a bunch of other things too. And they would call that drama, would they? Yeah, that is how I'm used to the term. I knew a guy who... my best friend's husband, and he would constantly, every time she was dealing with, like, serious traumatic stuff, he would call it drama. And it was just... that really grated after a while. Yeah. I mean, at least try to be better. Oh shit, Manchester's gone and become a free city. I ain't good at Batumi. Nice place, Batumi, from all I've heard. Oh, yeah. Yeah, fuck that. I mean, that is just the least you can do. To at least respect somebody's chosen name. I built that wall and now it's keeping me out. That sucks.
The real use of gunpowder is to make all men tall.
Oh yes, but you have to stand on a whole lot of it for it to work. Oh, that is icky.
I conclude then this point touching upon the power of kings with this.
Okay. Some medieval fairs. Sounds nice. to go. Do one thing. One of the various mechanisms that's changed in this Rise and Fall mod is that you have to monitor the loyalty of your cities, or they can just sort of break away. And the ones you've only just invaded break away particularly quickly. Oh, hello, Mask. How you doing? You would know this better than I do. How the hell do you win over these when one of a city you've invaded becomes a free city? How do you get that back? Because this mechanism is totally new to me. Because I lost Bradford completely, and now Manchester too. Yeah, I had a governor in Manchester. They kicked the governor out of Manchester. Yeah, I mean, whereas when people point out Bush's dishonesty, it's really easy because he actually is dishonest. It's so much easier to point out why somebody's being dishonest when they're actually being dishonest. Yeah, I mean, it's already become a free city, and I mean, it's the city that gave us fucking Morrissey, so I mean, really, I guess they could just kind of go on their way. I have to say, I've been to Manchester a few times, and it's depressing as hell. I feel like I might have. I built a granary. I figured, you know, surely that would be nice. Yeah, as if the context would actually make the shit that he says better. Ah, hell. Okay, now Manchester is definitively lost. And now I have to work on holding on to Birmingham. But it is time to switch over to the rotisserie portion of the evening. Oh, they want me to join a war with... Yeah, okay. Yeah. A monument might stop people from rebelling. I mean, that is an interesting thought, given that we've kind of seen people rebelling specifically to attack, I mean, and going after monuments in recent memory. Because sometimes monuments suck shit. Okay. Wait a second. There we are. Yeah, I mean, he does communicate for a living. And if people are constantly misunderstanding what he says in ways that make him look really bad, then that does suggest that he's really bad at his job, actually. Like, I mean, surely his job is to get his opinions across. Okay. Now we can continue looking at who knows Marx better, Caleb Maupin or Weedlord, which we started last week. And then we've got... Well, yes, but he annoys things. Stefan Potschka? Also... Ich kann gar nicht sagen, was ich von ihm halte, denn also den Namen höre ich jetzt zum allerersten Mal. Hallo, Nom. Okay. So... To me, it's between continuing with Weedlord reads Marx, or Vosh on how Thought Slime's takes supposedly are getting even more insane. Any strong feelings there? Stefan Potschka, wer ist denn das? Ein MDB. Also er ist AfD-Mitglied, also der ist ein Arschloch. Da brauche ich nicht mehr viel zu wissen. Also, was er jetzt gerade getan hat, was ihn zum Thema macht, also das weiß ich nicht. Also wie gesagt, den Namen höre ich jetzt zum allerersten Mal. Aber AfD-Mitglied gleich Arschloch. Mehr brauche ich eigentlich nicht zu wissen. Ja. Yeah, I mean, if he's with the AfD, then he can piss off. I don't need to know anything more about him to know that he sucks shit. Okay. Yes, he eats shit and bothers people. That sounds about right. Okay, we'll watch. Okay, we'll do the Vush one. We can come back to Weedlord. And let me know how the audio is.
Big props.
Okay. Das unsichtbare Visier wird jetzt ausgeschaltet. And here we go.
Unlearning economics for tuning me into this one. You know, it's been a while since we've had to really wrangle with this particular style of argument. Normally, I wouldn't pay much attention to this, but I really don't like Thought Slime, so I'll take an excuse.
He really doesn't like Thought Slime because Thought Slime not only does Thought Slime's cardinal sin, as far as Vush is concerned, is that not only does he call out Vosh's racism, but he actually then points out that Vush is just a problem, just an example of a problem that exists amongst like white leftists in general, and that he's not actually special. And Vosh thinks he's a very special boy, you see. So he does not like being just an example of a problem. He wants to be the whole fucking problem if he's going to be a problem.
To provide a learning opportunity for everyone else. Here, everyone listen up, okay?
Okay, we're listening up. Why the fuck does he have that kanji written on his chest is Niku? It means meat. Or flesh. The fuck's that?
I'm sure some economist who should log off would point out that, like, okay.
Oh, this is one of those styles of videos, by the way, where a person will, in a cowardly fashion, use humor as a way of making an argument that.
Oh, Vush is gonna tell us what's cowardly.
It's hyperbolic. But the hyperbole is kind of ambiguous, so you're not meant to know exactly how seriously they're taking the argument they make. No,
that's Thought Slime's entire fucking style is to make serious arguments with fucking jokes. That's like, this isn't some special thing that he's doing for whatever this is. So far, I don't recognize the video.
But Thought Slime is taking this argument fully seriously, so don't be deluded into the position that this is like, you know, like, oh yeah, well, they're not fully serious. They are, you know. I've seen this before. Everyone across the political aisle does this kind of argument, except for me, of course.
Sure, but Nintendo only makes Nintendos because they can sell them at big retailers like Walmart. Walmart's got to have that stuff because that's how the market distributes goods to people. If we stopped paying for goods, what would incentivize Nintendo to make Nintendos? Who would manufacture and distribute Nintendos? Also, less importantly, all other goods.
Soy.
Okay, so the basic argument here... Now, I'm not... Okay, does anyone recognize this video? This is not familiar to me, and I feel like I've watched every single thing that Thought Slime's ever made. But, I mean, the basic argument is that the reason that, you know, capitalists will invest in making a product is if they think that that if there is somebody out there who will pay them money to buy it from them at a profit. So, I mean, so far, that's not actually sounding, I mean,
So yeah, this is the classic, like, under socialism, how will we have people do jobs when they don't want to do jobs without making them pay rent argument. So, you know, it's a...
No, it isn't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. I mean, as I said, can anyone find the original video because I that this is from? Because it's not ringing a bell to me. But it doesn't sound like that argument. He's like very specifically talking about the fact that companies make things to sell them at a profit. That's the whole point. And obviously, if nobody's buying it, they will probably move on and sell some other shit.
It's a valid line to go down. This is one of the, like, big questions in economics, right? How do you...
But that isn't the question. I mean, if that's the question, then you haven't shown us enough of the clip. Because what he's talking about something completely unrelated to that.
Get people to do work they don't want to do. You know, historically, the solution to this has been give them money if they do the work, and if they don't have money, they can't live. That's kind of like the historical template you're working off of. Socialists claim to have a better answer. Thought Slime claims to be a socialist. Let's...
well, no. Thought Slime very specifically says that he's an anarchist communist. And what the hell does what Vosh is saying have to do with anything? We're specifically talking about the profit motive as it applies to making things, to corporations, to capitalists making things. Yeah, I mean, Vosh used to claim to be an anarchist or a libertarian socialist, despite not knowing anything about this. If anyone in chat can find this video, I am absolutely mystified at where Vosh is even getting this interpretation of what Thought Slime's saying. It does not...
See what the better answer is.
And, like, I don't want to overstate my case here, but here's why all of economics is fake. It's a fake idea for rubes and fools, and there are literally no worthwhile ideas to be understood from the entire field of economics. Every economist you've ever heard of is a fraud.
And actually, not really wrong. I mean, it is an absolutely dismal discipline, and it has less than zero standards. I mean, you go to, like, standard economics texts, university economics textbooks, and they will very specifically criticize, you know, say that when you create a model, you specifically don't want to test it against facts that might challenge the model. I mean, it is an intellectually dishonest discipline because it's not actually meant to do the thing that it says on the box. You know, if you want to actually study how the economy works, you know, at university, you're much better off going to either, like, sociology, history, or, you know, majoring in sociology, history, or going to fucking business school. Because, economists are basically only there to come up with ways to justify what's going on. And yes, there is an honorable minority who point out that the rest of the fucking profession is full of shit, but that doesn't change the fact that they're full of shit.
Karl Marx was an economist.
Not really.
Yeah. This is what I mean by, like, yeah, like the Schrodinger's hyperbole thing. I really
Yeah, I mean, Karl Marx wrote about it. I don't think he did. Mask. Would Karl Marx have called himself an economist? I don't. I mean, yeah, you could say he was, but considering that Thought Slime has generally had a lot of time for Marx, I don't think that he's putting this in that context. Yeah, I didn't think he did.
hate it when lefties fall on this sword, you know? Because a lot of lefties seem to operate on the understanding that literally all of economics is like a bunch of neoliberals explaining why poor people don't deserve good things.
Yeah, well, yes, because that's what it is. And before that, I mean, you did have Keynesian economists, but their entire thing was explaining how you could sort of prop up the capitalist system by being by like nerfing it a little bit. And yeah, I don't think that they did either. That
when it's not. You're kind of conceding the argument to the right when you do that, because you're essentially...
No, you're not. When you point out that the entire discipline is full of shit, because it is. Like, I mean, it's the same thing with, like, bullshit evolutionary psychology. It is an entire discipline that is bullshit. It is completely full of shit. There is nothing redeemable in it. The people who gravitate toward it are grifters who like to circumvent peer review by publishing in press releases, specifically because they have no standards. There are entire disciplines that are bullshit, and it is not leaving evolutionary psychology to the right to say it's a bullshit discipline. And when you point out that... And he said every economist you've ever heard of is a fraud. No, I mean, it's very specifically right there on the screen. You might notice. And who are the economists that people watching this are likely to have heard of? They're going to be a bunch of neoliberal shitheads.
Arguing that this critical, foundational, like, pillar of modern society and the analysis thereof is entirely siding with neoliberal economics, when it...
Well, yes, because the thing is, the discipline of economics is not a pillar of society in the sense... okay, there is the economy, and there's understanding the economy, and then there's the discipline of economics, which for the most part doesn't do that. Doesn't even try to do that. I mean, the level of, like, dishonesty in the profession. I mean, let's just remember that it was the Nobel Prize for Economics that was given. Let me just make totally certain that I'm right about this. Because I don't want to do a Vosh. Okay, well, let me just give you this example. It does not... He did not actually... I thought that he actually won the Nobel, but actually it was Elinor Ostrom who won the Nobel for doing what Garrett Hardin did not bother to do, which was actually research the question of what happened with the commons. I mean, when you look at, like, the Nobel Prizes in economics, for the most part, either it's for utterly trivial shit, like Elinor Ostrom just did, basically, basic fucking undergraduate level research to point out, to fact check, Garrett Hardin's essay Tragedy of the Commons, which was complete shit. It was just complete nonsense, and nobody had bothered to fact check it in any visible place up until then. I mean, or fucking Milton Friedman. It is a very... Who actually... who gives it out the Nobel Prize if it's not the Swedish weapons industry?
It's not. There are tons of economists who, provide critical analysis and give us answers to questions that we need answers to.
Give us an example. Let's hear one of your examples, Vush.
In ways that are favorable to a socialist argument, But when you do this, it's like, yeah, well, actually, this entire critical field upon which everything in modern society is built...
God, I mean, the conflation here. This is, I mean, he just manages every single thing about Vosh. He's the most annoying guy in the student pub who all he knows how to do is use that authoritative sounding tone and talk incessantly, and thinks that because nobody can get a word in edgewise that he's like fucking profound. Oh, Sveriges Riksbank, the national bank, it gives out the Nobel Prize in economics. Oh, yeah, there's no conflict of interest there, obviously.
Well, just ignore it. And it's like, well, no, you can't really do that.
Well, nobody's saying to ignore. Nobody's saying to ignore it. When you say something's full of shit, you're not saying to ignore it. You're saying to debunk it. In fact, I mean, Thought Slime's done quite a bit of that debunking. Lots of people. I mean, there's a whole fucking tradition going back to fucking... there was a guy, he wrote something called A Critique of Political Economy, and a lot of what he was doing was pointing out what bullshit the mainstream economics of his day was. Oh, right, that was
We
called
would still make
Mouse.
Nintendos because we like to have Nintendos. They're nice. Nintendo actually stopped making Nintendos like decades ago, and people still make them all the fucking time. People build enormous, expensive infrastructure to preserve and maintain abandoned software for Nintendos at great personal risk. They do it better than Nintendo does, despite Nintendo making millions of dollars from getting to do it. You literally could not stop people from making Nintendos if you tried. I know this because Nintendo has tried. And that is true of literally every single consumer good you can think of.
Okay, this is where Vush gets the idea that this is about, but people won't work if there isn't, if they don't have the constant threat of starvation. And the point is, and this is a point that actually David Graeber also makes in Bullshit Jobs, and I'm sure other people have as well, that when you actually, particularly in the software and like just the computer industry, you have this bifurcation of the lives of IT specialists, where what they get paid for is just kind of this boring, pointless crap of trying to make incompatible proprietary software silos work together. Just kind of trying to make the mess that capitalism makes of information technology function, and not really doing anything particularly, innovative or, the stuff that they would actually have gotten into the field for. And then in their spare time, for free, they come up with these amazing pieces of software that do all sorts of cool shit. I mean, that is the thing. I mean, I don't have Bullshit Jobs handy at the moment, but there's I think a whole chapter in Bullshit Jobs specifically talking about this phenomenon, because it is true, and this is something. What we're talking about here is alienation. Fundamentally, what we're talking about is alienation, because the reason that you have to use the threat of starvation to get people to do this bullshit that doesn't really do them much good, that doesn't have, for the most part, a tangible benefit for society, and often is something that is actually tangibly harmful. The reason you have to do that is because it's alienating. Because, as Marx pointed out, you don't give a shit about the actual job. You're just doing it because you need the fucking pay packet so that you can eat and, pay part of your rent and stuff. And so you do it, and it means that a substantial part of your day is just you doing something that you have no personal connection to, and it's alienating, whereas you might work even harder on something even more complicated, much more, energy intensive, because you actually care about the outcome. Because you actually care about the thing you're doing. This is the point he's making. And, yeah, the fucking the economists he's talking about, the mainstream fucking economists who will act like there's absolutely capitalist economists, because that's who he's talking when he says that they're frauds. Incidentally, that's what he means by the ones you've heard of, because those are the ones who actually get to be in the media. People like fucking Emily Oster, who says that we should all get COVID, and also wrote a book about how actually it's probably cool to drink in pregnancy because she isn't convinced of that there's that much of a risk. And this is the person that public health policy is being made, is like the immunos crise behind fucking public health policy in the US. So yeah, they're full of shit.
So basically their argument off the bat is people make custom ROMs and edits of Nintendo games. So obviously people will just clean the sewers when they want to, Lamau.
Well, no, that is not the argument, and that's actually a very dishonest way of putting the argument. The point that is being made here is that people, when the work isn't, that there are people who would actually be doing the work right now, a lot of this stuff, except they can't do it because of their 9-to-5 shit. I experience this as a translator all the time. It's a big part of why I do the crowdfunded translation thing. Because I want to be able to translate stuff that's actually important. And a lot of that stuff, there's no one client who's going to pay me the kind of money I need in order to be able to pay the rent and pay the bills and all that shit. And also spend the time that it would be needed in order to translate it properly. The result is that there is a lot of work that is not, that it just doesn't get done because people need people need money to survive in capitalism. Now, you're talking about sewers, that's an entire, specifically undesirable jobs, which is not what Thought Slime is talking about. Thought Slime is not talking about fundamentally undesirable jobs. Thought Slime right now is talking about more the sort of normal, normal level of desirability. The making of things that we need. And the thing is, yeah, there are plenty of people who would do that regardless, without, and are in fact doing it right now, despite the fact that it isn't rewarded, and as fact puts them under threat of various kinds of intellectual property litigation. The subject of undesirable jobs is a separate one. And the argument is different, although it's worth noting that cleaning the sewers is something that, of course, we all need. As long as sewers are the way that we're, getting rid of our wastewater and shit, literally, obviously they need to be, you don't clean sewers, though, really. You don't you don't shine the walls and, spray pledge on them. You are purifying the sewage. And, occasionally repairing the things to make them work. And yeah, actually there are people who specifically want to do plumbing work. Even though it involves all sorts of disgusting shit, even though you end up in all sorts of cramped and dark and nasty places. Because A, it's interesting, and B, because it is actually interesting. You get to learn a lot about these things. I've studied lots of shit that I don't do, and because you need it in order for society to work. Because society would be fucking disgusting if the sewers were you didn't have sewage treatment. Ask the people in Gaza who haven't had proper sewage treatment for years. Because Israel and the U.S. bombed the shit out of their water treatment facilities and have prevented them getting the replacement parts. So there is an inherent incentive to fix something like that. There's an incentive to do that kind of work, and the only question is, how do you distribute that kind of work to make sure it gets done and, does not, and the amount of unpleasantness involved in it is minimized. That's a separate question here.
It is someone's passion to make, to the extent that they would give up everything in their life for the chance to do it for a living, and they would find a way to do it better and more efficiently than any business could ever hope to.
I genuinely think if this is your take on economics, you should just delete your YouTube channel.
Well, that would make it easier for Vosh, because then everybody who is, better at this would stop competing with him.
So this isn't even me attacking lefties or anarchists, whatever.
Yes, it is. It literally is that thing. That's what you're doing. You're attacking an anarchist for making a really basic point.
Because this isn't what anarchist or leftist theory says.
Yes, it actually is, you dickhead. If you, how the fuck would you know what leftist or anarchist theory says? You famously refuse to read it.
This is just anti-intellectualism.
No, it isn't. How is this anti-intellectualism?
It is literally like all of jobs and business and economy are all fake. And
No, that is not what he said, though. I mean, this is such a dishonest and willfully dishonest way to interpret this. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking, Phoenix, about how it's actually quite easy to point out when Vosh is dishonest because he actually is that thing. And what he's doing here, see, he's gone from saying that economics and the economy, the discipline of economics and the economy are the same thing, and that you can't dismiss the discipline of economics without saying that the economy is unimportant, which is just bullshit, and was not, and obviously was not what Thoughtslime was saying. Yes, he is generally being dishonest if he's speaking. But then to take that and then say, God, yeah, that what he's saying is that all, jobs are fake. Like, what does that even mean? Because he clearly believes that, what does that even mean? Like, what did he just say? It was so asinine, I couldn't retain it.
Anarchist or leftist theory says. This is just anti-intellectualism. It is literally like all of jobs and business and economy are all fake.
All of jobs and business and economy are all fake. Where the fuck did he get that from what Thoughtslime just said? I should note, though, that if we're talking about anarchist theory, there's literally a book by a noted anarchist theorist, David Graeber, called Bullshit Jobs, about jobs that are actually completely pointless. I have criticisms of it, but the idea certainly exists, and if he actually read anything, maybe he would notice that.
And actually, if you just got rid of all that, it turns out that everyone is a diehard hobbyist for...
That's not what he's saying. And actually, what's amazing is that he's, acting like this is some outlandish take. This is a guy who claims... He's sitting here saying, this is not leftist or anarchist theory, and it's like... This is literally sort of the fucking bedrock of communism, this idea of alienation, and this idea that actually, if people did not have to fucking do bullshit, alienated work in order to survive, and were in fact free to dedicate themselves to the sort of work that actually matters to them and the people around them, we would end up actually getting better work, better outcomes, because you'd have people actually working on the things that care about the things that they're doing, rather than just caring about the next fucking pay packet. This is such basic stuff, and he's acting like it's outlandish. This is what, when Marx use the word that gets completely, distorted and taken out of context by people like that fucking the jacked incel, the most insecure man in the history of ever, or Caleb Muppet. When he talks about the idea of work, when Marx talks about the idea of work as life's prime want, this is what he's talking about. That, you get rid of alienation, you get rid of the threat of starvation as an incentive to work, and let people actually, create a situation where people do not have to worry about their basic survival, because everything that they need is just available and they don't have to come up with fucking money to do it, then they will obviously get to just do the things that matter to them. And there's plenty of examples of, even within, just welfare state capitalism. If you look at when British music really exploded, British rock music really exploded, that was the dole. That was the fucking dole. That was the unemployment benefit. That was how these artists managed to get their chops. was they were claiming the dole, and they were, playing venues that they weren't rent and shit like that, because they had housing benefit and they had the dole they could eat. I mean, this is really basic stuff for him to be acting like it's outlandish.
Every kind of work that needs to be done. Laying, like, brutal construction work being done in the desert at 97-degree heat. Yeah, there are people, that's like their life passion, actually.
Well, yeah, actually, there are people who love to build stuff. Now, I mean, being Vosh, I don't think he actually understands about actually making useful things, because he's never made anything useful in his fucking life. But I have. I love making things. I make, I like to stick my head over a really, really hot oven and fuck around with sticky dough and turn it into bread and turn it into fucking pizza. And I don't get paid a cent for it, and it's tiring, actually. But the result, it makes it worthwhile because I created something that people enjoy eating and that I enjoy eating as well. And so people I care about get to eat something they enjoy and I get to as well. So I do it. This is like the words of somebody who has never actually experienced non-alienated creation, which is really interesting to me. Well, I mean, you could argue that what he's doing right now is non-alienated creation, but although he is this is his source of income, but like the idea that people would actually do manual labor of various kinds without needing, without having to do it in order to survive is just wild. And it suggests to me that he's just never done it. Because, yeah, he would try to monetize a shite. In fact, this is what he's doing. He's just monetizing his farts right now. I mean, I have to say, I love making stuff. I do it, I do it when nobody's asking me. Sometimes I will just front up to the kitchen, knock together a fucking poolish, and make some dough because I just want to try something out. And if it comes out even halfway decently, there's gonna be very yummy bread and stuff like that. This is such a basic thing, and this is such a basic, would you agree with me, Mask? You are, I think, actually better read on theory in a lot of areas than I am when I say that this is pretty bedrock shit that he's acting like some, outlandish thing that Thought Slime just made up. Because my feeling is that this has been, I know, Chomsky actually also has written extensively about it. This specific thing, in Chomsky on anarchism, I think he in one of his talks, two people were talking about this, about, what about the sewers and stuff like that? And what about, manual labor and stuff? And he says, when it's not alienated, it's actually really rewarding. One of my favorite fucking things to do is to bust my ass in my garden. Nobody, this is, and certainly Marx was on about this, so it is just, it's wild. This is how fucking ignorant Vosh is. And that's the most charitable interpretation, is that Marx is such a theoretical illiterate that he's unaware of this. Did I just say Marx is? I meant Vosh, if I did. That Vosh is such a theoretical illiterate that he doesn't realize this. Or he perfectly well knows it, and he's that full of shit. And he just knows, he knows that he's got a bunch of rubes in chat who are not going to call him on this.
Like testing water all across rivers, across the heartland of the United States to make sure...
There are people who do that despite not getting paid because they care about the environment and they want to use it in order to fucking pressurize companies and local councils and things to do something about water quality. There are literally people who go out and do this on their own time, specifically because they care about water quality and they want to... And
or that like the pH acidity level is perfectly in line with the estimates of the... Yeah, no. Modern industrial society requires coordinated, regulated, and bureaucratic work from millions of people that all needs to be perfectly in lockstep in order...
Well, yes, as modern capitalist society does. It doesn't...
for anything to remotely function.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean... And this guy has, for the longest time, called himself some kind of a socialist or an anarchist or something like that. And here he is basically making the standard, like, liberal argument against anarchism, against communism.
The obnoxious thing is the closest thing that you would get to a realization of this kind of attitude is some kind of dystopian anarcho-capitalist, like,
No, that's literally the exact opposite, because you would not have unalienated production in that anarcho-capitalist society, even in the 5 minutes in which it would succeed in not collapsing, because it would take about that long to collapse. Because you would specifically in that sort of a fucking dystopia, there would be nothing unalienated except maybe for the capitalists, although even they would have no fucking stability. Jesus. This is really remarkably...
Regulation-free, like, cyberpunk society. No, well, not even cyberpunk, because the kind
No, there's actually not cyberpunk. Because cyberpunk is specifically a capitalist dystopia, and what Thought Slime is talking about is literally just fucking mainstream ideas about communism.
The technology you would need to manufacture, like, computer chips is beyond any kind of production scale you could get out of coordinated hobbyists. You need factories for that.
Seriously, yes. You need a certain quality of facility to surface mount shit on printed circuit boards and microchips and things like that. That's true. Do you really think that there aren't... That doesn't mean that you need alienated production in order to do it. There are definitely... That is literally a great example of where there are people who have specifically got into it because they love doing it, because they find the work fascinating. I mean, there's a whole channel on YouTube, a guy named Louis Rossmann. He's a bit of a fucking right libertarian on a lot of things. But the guy, I mean, he's very big into what's called right to repair, which is, like, the idea that companies should not be designing their shit so that it is impossible for users to service them, so that the only thing, one component fails, you have to replace the whole thing, when it would be theoretically possible were it not for these companies' refusal to make the parts available and the schematics and things to repair it. I mean, this is a guy who's gotten into repairing the boards on Macs and iPhones and shit, even though the company absolutely hates that people do this. Even though he's massively discouraged from doing it by the actual literal company whose stuff he works on. There are people who absolutely... I mean, if you gave somebody the high-end facilities that they would need in order to do that sort of work, and there are people who would absolutely love to just fuck around with microchips and probably come up with all sorts of innovations, probably even by accident. He's just reeling off examples of things that there are definitely people who feel passionate about. I mean, God. He is such a fucking ignoramus.
So it would be more like, if you could imagine all of the incoherence of, like, a cyberpunk setting, but it's anarcho-primitivist, so it's actually, like...
Obviously, because it's anarcho-primitivist, you see, because people are working on fucking... on making, samizdat versions of the NES console. Like Anprims always wanted to. Anprims always want to sit in the forest and be turfs who make Nintendos. That's totally what... That's like... Could you get, like, get the definition, the bad faith summary of at least one ideology, right, Vosh? What's amazing is I'm only 6 minutes into this fucking thing.
People dying because of regulation problems at your local hand-dug well. You know, because turns out...
Well, wait a second. Nobody's talking about doing these things by hand, necessarily. Nobody's talking about, like, not having standards. This is all shit that he's making up. This is literally the bad faith, like, neoliberal response to any time somebody says we could organize production in a way that does not involve rich ghouls controlling it. This is the standard. This isn't even innovative bullshit. This is just standard capitalist apologetics.
The guy whose passion it was to dig wells didn't actually have, like, a hydrological degree or, like, a virology degree, so he wasn't capable of determining whether or not the water was safe to drink.
Well, you know, I wonder, you know, in a communist society, which is what we're talking about, whether there might be some solution. Like, what if there were other people who were working with this guy and making sure that the well that was being dug was going to serve the purpose, and helping make any modifications that needed to be made in order to ensure it did. You know, what if the whole idea, what if communism means that we work together, and it's not just one random guy going around digging holes and saying, well, let's see if there's water here. I mean, this is just such standard, like, this is the bullshit you would expect to hear on PragerU. This is PragerU level capitalist apologetics.
Yeah, like, that's the world we're in for here. This video actually gets worse, by the way, if you can believe it.
Wait, you mean yours or his? Because his is pretty based so far.
She gets stupider, okay? Hold on.
Also, hundreds of other people would find doing it pretty interesting and fun if they were allowed to do so on their own terms. People, literally, for fun, play video games about long-haul trucking, and you're seriously trying to make the argument that without the profit incentive, nobody would want to do a boring job, like...
And a lot of those games, it's worth remembering, are somebody's side thing. It's just something that people wanted to do. Like, the creation of these games, probably that's somebody, like, these small games from these small developers, almost certainly are coming from people who have some boring, like, sysadmin job or something like that. And this is something they do in their spare time because they just fucking love it. I mean, they, like, the world of, and just about all the interesting games, like, just about all the games that, like, you see on Casey Explosion's stream on Twitch, which is one of the most wholesome places on Twitch. Just incidentally, it's just lovely. And Casey's game recommendations are always on point. This is where I know about the truck game as well. But, Jesus, like, all of that, these small developers nobody's heard of coming up with these weird ideas for games, that's not something that some boardroom came up with. That's somebody in the pub with a couple of mates saying, you know, it would be really cool if we had a photorealistic game where you're just driving a truck. Like, we'll make a really kind of fucked up looking truck through off-roading in the fucking frozen tundra of Russia. This is a literal game that exists. And that, I mean, that's not some shit that a boardroom came up. Boardrooms come up with 10 versions of, like, fucking Sonic the Hedgehog, but I mean, somebody else, but the idea itself probably did not come from there. The idea of, like, running it into the ground did. I mean, the whole world of game mods, too. I mean, when we're talking about fucking software.
Trucking, or cleaning public infrastructure, or farming.
Guys. Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah, it's a thing that exists. It's actually it's strangely calming. You go into these disgusting, like, places, and you have a jet wash thing, and you're spraying off the wall. I watched that. That's another one. I mean, I think this is just Casey Explosion's Steam curator page that ThoughtSlime's getting this stuff off of, because that's another one from that I saw in Casey's.
Is doing really well. So actually, guys, I've got good news, okay? Power Wash Simulator is doing well. Therefore, okay, so here's a question.
Oh, no, God. He decided to pull that back. Because what he was about to say is that Power Wash Simulator is doing well, and therefore there are probably people who would derive pleasure from doing a really, really good job with the right tools to clean off shitty infrastructure. And then he realized that that's probably actually quite true. Because yes, there are people who are obsessed with cleaning and actually really want to do it. Yeah, I mean, because Vosh, he did an undergrad in Soch. He did an undergrad in sociology. All that stuff's below him. I mean, above him, really. Because it actually achieves something useful, whereas all he does is, manages to do sort of PragerU without the animation.
Why then are people playing Power Wash Simulator instead of cleaning their damn house?
Well, except that you think that maybe some of the people who are playing Power Wash Simulator when they're not playing Power Wash Simulator are cleaning their house. Maybe their house is already pretty fucking clean, actually. Maybe their house is really clean because they like to make things clean. Because there are people who actually love that. There are people who enjoy it. I like fucking... Get this, Bask says, there's a whole fucking genre of videos on YouTube about people who go around giving people free power washes and other things. Yeah, I can believe it, because there is something deeply satisfying about seeing the shite blasted off something and the actual nice texture of it emerging. There is something very pleasant about that. I mean, here's the thing that I occasionally do. I like organizing kitchens, which is hilarious because, I'm a horrible housekeeper. But if somebody says, hey, my kitchen's really badly organized and nothing's ever where I need it to be and it's not very ergonomic, and I will just jump in and I will arrange that thing, and I'm really fucking good at it. People like the job that I do on it, and I enjoy doing it. And it makes people happy because suddenly, their kitchen is better organized and shit. Yeah, because it is actually enjoyable to make things look nice. I mean, the idea, I hate mowing the lawn. I absolutely hate it. But I enjoy the smell of the cut grass, and I like, the result and shit like that. The idea that there are people who actually want to do work that he looks down on is just completely alien to Vosh. He looks down on all this shit. He wouldn't ever do any of this stuff. The stuff that actually does stuff for other people as opposed to just crapping on fucking YouTube and Twitch all the time.
Maybe there's something about Power Wash Simulator, like the fact that it's a game, and you're not actually suiting up in, biologically insulated clothing in order to delve into the city's sewer system to use.
What is his obsession with the idea that people are sprucing up the sewer system? There are things you do in sewers. That's how little he knows about any kind of fucking, actual manual labor. He thinks that what people do when they suit up and go into the sewer is they take out the pledge and they shine up the walls and they put a little fucking chocolate on the pillow for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's what he thinks people do in sewers when they go down under the fucking ground to check them out. He can't even come up with a plausible example of what workers might do in a sewer because he's never given it any thought.
Use a pressure washer to hot blast fossilized turds off the inner wall of your lead pipes, because the guy whose hobby it is to lay pipes really likes lead because it's heavy. So
Jesus, see, he's really just kind of he's really this is really excellent bad faith here right now, because refresh my memory, chat. Did Thought Slime say anything about how obviously in communism we don't have standards? Because I don't remember that. Just because you have people working on doing the jobs that they actually care about because they want to do them, and not because they're, like, starving. I mean, we got tons of lead pipes now in capitalism, my dude. Like, we have entire cities that don't have any fucking drinkable water. Because in capitalism, in the system you're here defending, well, claiming that you're just sort of defending abstractly the concept of economics, we, like, fucking Jackson, Mississippi, Flint, Michigan, I mean, we're full of shitty infrastructure that's just collapsing, and water, water mains that are full of all sorts of fucking contaminants and heavy metals and shit. And that's what's going on now. So maybe the approach where people are where capitalists are doing this on the profit motive and workers are just doing it so that they can fucking survive another week, maybe that actually is achieving the results that you're saying would come from communism, Vosh. Buenas noches. Buenas noches, ¿cómo está, Ladlovert? We are learning. Vosh is explaining why communism doesn't work, because apparently you can't have standards in communism. Except he won't openly just say that he's attacking communism, because that would give the game away. So he's acting like fucking Thought Slime came up with this idea about non-alienated work and how people would work on things because they actually care about them. And because Vosh can't conceive of people doing any kind of labor that he considers lowly just because they care about it and enjoy it and it matters to them. I mean, he's been trying to say that if we have communism, then we'll end up with, like, fucking lead in the water supply. Like they're, like, in Flint. Like, right now, in capitalism. And maybe, like... Oh, my camera's been fucked up. That's me. That's on my end. My camera keeps doing this. So I've decided I just don't give a shit. I tried, like, restarting. I have to restart OBS to make it work. So that's all that is.
So it settles well in the... Like, it's... Yeah. This argument is nanners. I rate it a solid 9.8 out of 10 nanners. This bunch of nanners is full.
Well, yeah, the argument that Vosh made up and put in Thought Slime's mouth, because this isn't the argument Thought Slime was making, because Thought Slime was just making a pretty basic communist argument.
Full, okay? This is a full bunch. Yeah, can you imagine somebody this is actually like the lefty equivalent of somebody going like, yeah, you really want to take me on? I have over 900 hours in CS:GO. All right.
Yeah, exactly. What Vosh is doing is, it's like he played a video game in which you, like, become erudite. You get erudition points, but you don't actually have to know anything to get them. And so now he thinks he's a fucking master,
Right? You seriously think you could defeat me in combat? Bro, I would flashbang your ass across the apartment complex and dive in on you before you even knew. Bro.
No, it's not the same fucking thing. It's not the same thing. Like, this is just... It should say everything that... It's been almost an hour that I've spent on this video. We're only 8 minutes and 26 minutes into it. I mean, 8 minutes and 26 seconds into it. Because it has been just that dishonest.
You have no idea how quick my quick shots are. Like, oh yeah, dude, haven't you... What do you mean? The modern generation is unfit for war? Have you not seen the popularity of Battlefield 4? Come on.
And what's... Okay, this is even more ridiculous. Because the thing is, the U.S. Army, the U.S. military, actually uses a lot of war video games as training materials. Because a lot of modern fucking warfare is just sitting and killing people by remote control. So, yeah, actually, I mean, this is one of the critiques of a lot of, like, military video games, because they specifically, they offer such good connectivity to actually doing it in real life with, you know, the U.S. military. So, I mean, he manages, it's like every example he's come up with has been utterly just off-the-wall bullshit.
Come on, get real. Truly incredible stuff. I feel I don't even want to, like, respond rationally to this argument.
Well, that's good because you didn't. You haven't even acknowledged the argument. You're just making shit up.
Because it's so dumb that it... You know what I mean? It would be like pulling out a textbook to respond to a 4-year-old asking why every time like they ask how pipes are electric.
Well, that actually sounds like a good idea. In fact, I mean, that's kind of... Yeah, that's actually a good thing to do. Like, if you have a little kid who really wants to know what's going on with, you know, the pipes or some shit like that, and they just happen to have a grown person in their life who knows how those things work, I think it's actually, you know, if they know how to explain the stuff so a little kid can understand it without getting into so much detail that they can't, I think that's a great thing. Like, he's acting like that's such a ridiculous idea, which really tells you a lot about, like, how he thinks about kids and their intellectual curiosity. A trait that he himself sorely lacks. Like, I mean, what he's describing is literally what I did. Like, I wanted to know shit about languages. So I went and I didn't care whether it was somebody said it was age appropriate or anything. There was nothing that was age appropriate on the questions that I was interested in. And yeah, I didn't understand everything. I just kept reading it. And even the stuff I didn't understand, I often retained, and I could come back to it later and understand it. Like, Jesus, he is telling on himself so fucking hard here. And with that, it is time to wrap it up for tonight. Having only managed to get 9 minutes into this fucking video. But I will be back tomorrow night at 11:30 U.S. Eastern Time and we can continue this, or we can watch Weedlord trying to explain Marx, or any number of useful and beautiful things. Thank you, Mask and Phoenix and Ludlow and everybody who's joined. It's been good seeing you, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I will also be on Hyperpolyglotting tomorrow from about 4:30 to about 7. Gonna play some Civilization VI, talk about language shit. It'll be a nice time. Have a good night, and I hope to see you soon.